Hey, this is going to be a bit jarring because I'm going to go swap to my parents' house because I recorded this a long time ago. But I just want to say at the beginning of this video, it's not the best tutorial. This is me more losing my mind because I did not have a fun time recording this. It was fine, but I had quite a few problems along the way, including the top-down camera. This angle was not recording for two parts of the video. At the very beginning, it's going to be a lot of me and a little bit of the phone camera angle because I forgot to hit record for the first 30 minutes of this camera angle. So you won't see this top down until after the microscope stuff is done. And then a little bit later, my card ends up filling up. So then this angle goes away for like a little bit. I catch it quite a bit faster than the last time. So yeah, I also ramble quite a bit. It's not bad rambling, like probably right now, but I give a lot of information in the very beginning of the video. I talk for about 5 minutes before actually starting. It's very important information. That's why I say it, and that's why I kept it in the video. But I highly recommend watching the entire video and then following along with me. Probably watch this entire video and my full review video that's on the main channel, link down below, before even purchasing anything. Okay? Cool. You've been warned. See you at my parents' house. Oh my gosh. Like, I know I'm just starting the video, but this is a giant mess. So here's the deal. I have already desoldered everything I need to from the majority of these boards, except for the audio jack and this stuff for reasons I'll get to in a minute. But I removed the link port because I thought I had some aftermarket ones. Turns out I don't. I removed the cart slot and the power jack. Probably never going to use the power jack. Let's be real. I don't know why this isn't a USB-C, but I removed all those things because desoldering is honestly kind of boring. I would have just made it a time lapse anyways. If you're attempting this mod, you should probably know what you're doing when desoldering this kind of thing. And I've kind of gone over it in a couple other videos on the channel, on this channel and the main channel. I know it's not the best for a tutorial, but this is probably going to be a pretty long video as it is. I also, unfortunately, decided to cannibalize Game Boy Pocket Color, my original one that I did with Natalie, because you need a very specific screen mod for the Game Boy Color, which I'm just now realizing that I don't have. And with the unfortunate tariff war that we're going into right now, I just don't think it's financially viable for me to buy one. This is already an expensive project. And even though they're not sponsoring this video, I'm going to shout out PCBWay for doing all the boards and putting together as much as they can. So yeah. And even then we had to take some shortcuts because this got very expensive very fast. This is much more expensive than the Game Boy Pocket Color by Bucket Mouse just because there are 4 boards that are necessary. I'm actually starting to think that the audio board we could literally just swap. And I think I might just do that because I'm going to swap everything over anyways. And there's nothing different. So I think I'm literally just going to swap this and put it in this board. But yeah, I'm just now realizing that this was kind of pointless. And it would have been pointless for me to get this board pre-populated because I think the only thing I could have done was the capacitors anyways. So I'm just going to take this board and use it on here and not bother swapping all of this out because that's just a lot of extra work I don't need to do. And then also in the process of taking this out of here, you're seeing that there's no screen attached to it. So I'm going to be using part of a DMG IPS kit because you have to use a Game Boy Color IPS kit for this. And so I'm going to be using the screen. It's the exact same screen as Q5 screen. It's pretty much used in all of the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Pocket DMG mods anyways. It's just different ribbon cables because it's different technology for each of those models. And then since we're putting this in a DMG, I might as well use the bracket, right? Is this a lot of information to throw at you all at once? Absolutely. But yeah, we're going to start from the position of I got all of this pre-populated by PCBWay. There will be a link to the PCBWay project if you want to do the same thing that I did. There are also other options you can go about this. You can buy it directly from Bucket Mouse on his Etsy page, which I'll also link down below. And then you can also buy this pre-populated, about as pre-populated, maybe even more pre-populated or slightly less pre-populated from Inside Gadgets, I believe, which may be the better, more viable financial option for you, depending on where you live, especially with the tariff war going on. And I will unfortunately not be saying majority of what I just said in the main channel review, because that's going to be sponsored by PCBWay. Look, there's nothing bad about PCBWay. I think they're a great company. I love them. With the tariff war and me being in favor of my viewers more than my sponsors, I want to show the more financially viable ways to do this project. And either way, I'm pretty sure, and can't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that both Bucket Mouse and Inside Gadgets use PCBWay to make their boards and pre-populated boards. So either way, I believe my sponsor makes money. I really hope they don't watch this video. Anyways, let's get into it because we got a lot to do. This board, I don't really need to do anything with till the end. I've got an original speaker. I don't have a funny playing DMG speaker on me. This is already pre-populated. We will reuse the wire from the other board. No, you cannot reuse the original power board. You have to do this one because this is a Game Boy Color. This is a DMG. This is pretty much, as far as I'm aware, this is pretty much the power board that you see in the bottom corner of the Game Boy Color, just in the DMG's board form. I could be wrong. There's probably a little bit extra to it, but that is that. And that's why you have to use this. You cannot use the original board. You got to get your cartridge slot, your power jack, and your link port. Oh, and the power switch. I forgot to do the power switch. Dang it. We'll desolder that too. And then we'll need the CPU and the crystal from the Game Boy Color, which I've already removed. And I cannibalized that from the same Game Boy Pocket Color that I got this from. So yeah, hopefully you're not too confused. Let's actually start with the CPU and the crystal. I'm going to cover this board in Kapton tape so I don't melt anything or accidentally move anything else. And then we will solder the main chip on. Isn't that cool? You don't have to cover this in Kapton tape to do this part. It's just going to be a heck of a lot easier. I am actually very excited for this to be finished because as cool as the Pocket Color idea is, I just love the DMG so much more. And it's going to have insane battery life because of the 4 AA batteries. Like, this will probably be my go-to Game Boy Color for the rest of time. One of the downsides that I guess I'll just knock out of the way for me is the switches, the micro switches for the buttons. I could have gotten this without them, and I really should have. I should have requested that I don't have those when PCB was saying, is this good? Referring to the bill of materials, because there were a few things like the LEDs that I did have to omit. But I also, apparently, unless I just covered every gold piece up with some sort of solder, I guess I forgot to make this ENIG, which is unfortunate. So if I remove those switches, my button presses with the membranes and stuff won't be as accurate. I would just rather have the accuracy and the buttons that are not my preferred style than have inaccurate buttons in my preferred style, if that makes any sense. And for this section, I will be using hot air and the fan and stuff in both the hot air gun and my clean air fan, whatever I want to call this. It's going to be loud. I apologize. We're going to heat this up, and I'm going to go like over 400 C with this thing just to make things easier. But that's also why we want the Kapton tape down so things don't melt. And I'm going to put flux down over all of these spots. And I'm going to go ahead and put the crystal down first before I forget the orientation. Actually, I'll just leave it in the orientation. I really hope that this doesn't go out of focus, but I apologize if it does. Okay, here goes nothing. I'm going to also turn my airflow down so it doesn't move the exposed resistor or capacitor. Okay, that wasn't great, but I'm going to move on to the crystal. I think that did it, but it's really hard to tell. So I'm just going to turn this off now. We're pretty much done with the hot air. And then I'm going to set up the microscope while all the fans are cooling down. What I'm going to do here I'm going to check all of these pins, make sure they're actually locked down and in place. Starting with the top row, just stick my dental pick between each of these and do a little wiggle test. And if it moves like that, then it's not good. Okay, we got 2 right there, got 3 right there. Okay, these 3 right here, let's just go ahead and touch those up. So I'm literally just going to wiggle them like that and then solder them back down and check them again and then make sure they're good and then move on to the next section. It's really boring, so I'm probably going to time lapse it until there's something interesting. Yeah, you know the drill. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Or I just bridge everything and then I try and unbridge it. There we go. Okay. Check this side row. Even though it's like slightly crooked, it actually looks decent. Heck yeah. Only problem is we have some bridges. Cool. I mean, really not that cool, but we're going to put this in a way where we can see both of the bridges and the bottom row because it also has some bridges down there. And I'm going to put some flux down on the bridges, clean my iron, tap down, clean iron. Those look good, but also look like they might be lifted now. So we'll get back to those in a minute. And those cleaned up beautifully. Clean the iron and let's go back to testing. Cool. I want to go up a little bit just to make sure I didn't accidentally wiggle any of those. Cool. Now we can do this. There is another short over here. Good there. Okay. So all those are good. We need to get rid of that bridge. Should be pretty simple. Cool. And we can test it. Cool. Boom. There we go. There's a wiggle. There just one? No way. Oh, 2. That one looked like it was in. Oh, that was moved significantly. Okay, can we get that back over? Looks like the top 5 or 6. Okay, from there, from like the bottom of the circle, pretty much. We need to fix that. Pretty much all of those there. And then we're pretty much done. Like the rest of this is gonna be a breeze. I don't think anything's bridged here. I genuinely can't tell because of how much like burnt flux is down, but I don't think there's anything bridging and everything is not wiggling. I'm also now realizing that I never turned on this camera to begin with. So I'm sorry that everything was on here before the microscope stuff for the only top down stuff. Today has not been my day. This week has not been my week. But the good news is that's the majority of the hard stuff. So I'm going to carefully remove this Kapton tape and hope that nothing comes with it. Nope. But boy, is that fluxy. It's almost like we used way too much flux. But hey, it wasn't really too much because we kind of needed it. Anyways, we can put in our link port. Should slot in there. Perfect. We can put in our DC jack. Sweet. And I will put in my cart slot. And then we will solder all of them in. This time we will do it with the soldering iron. We're done with the hot air, unless I need it to remove the power switch, which I would like to say that I would have really liked to see some more of these be aftermarket things. Like you could have just made it a generic aftermarket power switch. Maybe it's a little harder because it's the DMG, but definitely could have been done with the Game Boy Pocket one. And maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't an aftermarket power switch for the Game Boy Pocket one. Either way, I still love this project so far, besides the frustrations that have happened. I'm going to load this up with flux on all the points I need to solder to. And then I'm pretty much just going to hold the component down and solder, which for this, I'm just going to add solder to the 2 big points. And then I can add solder to the rest of these. And unfortunately, my neighbor is deciding to mow the lawn right now. So I apologize for any grumbles and barks from my dog or any lawnmower noises you might hear. Same thing for the DC jack, just solder the 4 points down, pretty simple. And then for the cart slot, everything is about as far in as it can go, but I'm still going to hold it down near the cart slot, and I'm gonna get some solder on my tip and secure one pin, at least one pin on both ends with some solder. And then that should allow me to add solder to all the rest of these points. From here, I'm going to get out my original DMG board, and I'm going to try and remove the power switch. It's gonna be a little hard, but I think I can do it. I'll probably make this a time lapse. Just going to put some flux down on all the points, and then I'm going to add fresh solder to each of those points. And then I'm going to stick my tweezers underneath the power switch for some leverage. And then I'm going to just heat up all of the points. Take this up to 350C and then just heat it all up until it falls out. That was much easier than I thought it would be. Cool. And while we're here, I will go ahead and remove, don't touch the hot part. I will go ahead and remove the wires for the power board because I'm just going to reuse the wires and make it a little bit easier. I'm going to turn it down to 300 though, because I don't want to melt the wires. And then do the same for the headphone jack board. Okay, we don't need that board, and I think we're done with this board as well. I think we just need to add the rest of this stuff to our main board. So power switch, we can just plop this in. I think we need to clean up some of the solder here though. And then that locks in there. You can fit it in the hole. So it's pretty simple to just add the solder that we need. And that looks pretty good to me. I feel like it actually could be in there a little bit more. So I'm gonna try and sandwich this together with my tweezers and coax it to go in a little bit more. So just pinching this down while at a high heat, and then kind of doing the same thing we did to release this power switch, just heat up all of these points to try and push it in as much as possible. But I think we actually are in as much as possible, as weird as it sounds. Even though it looks like we're not, as long as the power switch works, I don't really care. We will cross that bridge when we get there. Let's move back to the headphone jack and just bust that out real quick. I feel like that'll be pretty simple. So we can just, how was that in this one? I believe that came out of here. I'm gonna grab another DMG board for reference. So according to this board, it goes in like this. So we should be able to just stick all of these wires through these holes. You know, I don't think it would hurt anything to make these holes slightly bigger for the wires, because I can get 3 of the 4 in perfectly. It's this last one that I'm struggling with. I think it's just because it's too thick. Okay, my hands are so sticky from the flux. Let's just knock this out. Boom. We're gonna put that back down, and I'm gonna have to find this in the actual tutorial. The red is the bottom one, but there's a ground wire that we also need to solder. That one's went in so well. Nice. We'll go ahead and solder these. Man, my hands are so sticky. And then we will add an extra ground wire in a minute. I just added the solder for that. Okay, next is the power board, and we want to line it up the same way. Thankfully, these are labeled, so it's easier to follow. I put it through hole on the wrong side. I don't think it really matters. And then we can make a new wire. I'm gonna make it brown just to make things easier. Or not easier, easier for me because I have extra brown wire right now. Take it to there, strip it. I think after this, we're nearing the end. We can just do that. Then I will actually solder to the bottom of this one. Okay, I think from here, we just need to really solder wires for the mod kit. So I'm gonna go clean up my fingers because they are sticky as all get out. I'm going to do the soldering for this over here, and I think we're actually done, but we can do some soldering for this. A lot of the tools I've been using are also pretty sticky. Interesting. There's B. Oh man, select is fraying like crazy. That'll work. And then A, if I can grab the freaking wire. And then I made a new wire just for bat, which I guess since all of these are red, I'll make this one the red one. Dude, I cannot get this one to solder down. There and there. And then I honestly don't know which one is up and which one's down, but I'm gonna take it like this, put this one on this side, like that. And then, oh yeah, I should probably solder this one there, and then solder that like that. Hopefully I don't have to flip this around. And now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to have to flip it around. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to flip that around because this is gonna go like that. But I don't think it's gonna matter too much. Oh, I think it's definitely gonna matter. Okay, let's swap those around. That's why you watch me do mistakes, so you don't have to. And this is just too short, so I have to do this very, very awkwardly. And I can actually put the soldering iron away. Woo! Because we're done. That is all the soldering. Unless I famously mess up here. But we're gonna just plug this in, push it in as far as possible into this top one here, lock those tabs down. And I'm actually going to reinsert it over here because it looks crooked. So lifting that tab up, making sure it's nice and flat and all the way pushed in, lock that down, we're good. Man, my fingers are sticky again. No, actually, I'll just get some alcohol. Do that. Just quick and de-sticking. And then from here, I think it's about dang time we actually get out the shell. Oh, we still do have to solder one more thing. The speaker. Dang it. Who caught that? Anybody catch that? I caught it. Too late. So I'm going to strip these wires on the speaker because I always just snap these off of DMGs. So I need to strip the wire a little bit. It's a 0.4, I think, aka the 26 gauge. But this should be super simple. So I'm going to flip it like this. It does not matter which way we stick the wires in. They can go either way. Which is something that I love about these speakers. There's no positive or negative. They're just two wires. Maybe there's a difference. I don't know, but I've literally just thrown them in every time and it works the same. It sounds exactly the same to me. Get up to temperature, and while we do that, I'm gonna stick some flux down, and my fingers are sticky again. Okay, officially done soldering. I swear, please stop. I don't want any more soldering. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, the film and attach it to the back of the screen. I can finally get out my shell, which I'm gonna be using a red shell today, which you probably saw in the thumbnail. Getting impatient because we're at the end. And this has been an hour and a half long. My card is full. Don't shoot in 4K. It's not worth it. Man, okay. We're so close. We are so close. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put the buttons in now and get out the screws, I guess. One thing we do need to do, like pretty much the only trimming thing we need to do is trim off this, which honestly, I don't even think we need, but we'll trim off using this as a guide. Because otherwise we can't use Game Boy Color games in this. So gotta trim off that so we don't physically block Game Boy Color games. Got that done. So drop A and B in there. I'm going with red and black because I think it looks cool. Okay, now put this up like that so the buttons can actually hang out there. And let's see. We are going to trim off a couple of these with our flush cutters. I don't even know if this is actually strictly necessary. It's just going to make our lives easier when we apply this double-sided tape here. And the buttons are actually going to fall out for me because I'm going to do it this way, where I can see where the black lines up. Just try and get it as centered and even as possible. That was not my best. Slightly crooked, but here we are. We're in the end game now. And then I'll peel this up, and I will try my darndest after I peel this. Oh man, to keep this center. Yikes. I don't know if that was good or not. And then we can put our other insulation film over the top of this board as we close it all up and hopefully get everything properly lined up. And I will stick the speaker in right there. And then we can get a bunch of Phillips heads and stick them in all of these circled holes, the holes with white circles around them. Or maybe black, depending on the color of your motherboard. Cool. We got one down. Should be good enough to lay this flat. Definitely got to loosen the screw that's around the contrast wheel, or else the contrast wheel will get stuck. But we're good there. And I'm just going to quickly test that all of these buttons feel good. They do. Cool. Then we can get all of these wires in an orientation that I like. Cool. We will cover this up with Kapton tape, and I'm just going to reuse a portion of Kapton tape from earlier. Where did our scissors go? Cool. And then So close. So close, people. We can stick the cable in like this. So we need to lift these tabs up, stick it in pin side up, latch it down. We should be good there. We can move this off to the side, put our cut power switch cover in, and we can drop all of this in slightly awkwardly. And we need to pop these tabs out a little bit more and then just push them back in until they slot in the slot. And we need to pull this out so we can push all of this down. This is awkward as heck, man. Slot the power board in somehow. We're gonna push these up so this fits in a little bit better. That's not the right place to slot it. That like slots in very tightly. We also want to be very careful of our wires, putting this all down. Okay, I think we're good now. So we can grab a couple more Phillips heads, screw these down. I think the pre-pot audio is for if you want to add an amp, but I thought there was an amp included in these already. I don't know. I'll try and look into it. I'm like really trying to push this board down. I'm a little worried that I'm breaking it. So maybe you want to sand that slot down a little bit more so the board actually fits in there. Whew, okay. I'm getting too impatient and this is not good, but okay. I'm going to put the scissors down because there's a lot of flux going on around here. And this should be pins up and slotted in like this. And you can lock down the two tabs. Try and do it evenly. It's a little hard. And then you take off the battery cover, slot this down, and then we can swap from a Phillips head to the tri-wing. You might not want to screw all this down too tightly because of all the wires we've got going on, just in case you have something pinching. It's fine to not have this the tightest you can have it, especially around like here where all that mess of wire is for the power cable. Don't really want the power cable shorting. Okay, I just loosened the two screws around here, and the contrast wheel is freely moving a little bit nicer. Okay, last couple things. Batteries. I gotta get 2 more because it's a DMG. I'm just gonna take some batteries from this Game Boy Light over here because I don't really use that often, if I'm being honest. I hope there's some charge to these. Hallelujah. Okay. Volume was all the way down. Speaker not working. That's all right. The colors seem a little off too. Game. Don't do this to me. Oh, something is not right. It turns on, but games don't boot, but the Nintendo logo pops up and the colors are slightly off. I think that the colors, that's just weird. The colors look off. Okay. Let's press and hold this in. Should bring up our menu. No. Select. There it goes. Okay. Then we can go to vertical position. I always forget how to actually properly navigate this menu. Centered. Honestly, the vertical position looks good until we put an actual screen lens on it. Pixel effect. No. I think I may have wired these up backwards. I don't care. It's just for the menu. So who cares? Not me. Okay. I think for now, even though we're without sound, I'm going to go grab a screen lens, slap it on here, and I will troubleshoot off camera because we're going on almost 2 hours here for me, and I just don't have the time to troubleshoot it today. So I may come back later and say something. I have a feeling I just need to clean out the cart slot or something a little bit. And as far as audio, it's probably just the board I used because this is from a stack of dead boards. That's why I used it for this project. This is either the end of the video because I just needed to clean it and I'll have words on screen right now describing what actually happened, or this is not the end of the video and here's the last bit of the video. Okay, so it's been a while. I moved. You might know that already. And here we are. It is fully working, but there's one more thing we need to fix. I'll get to that in a second. So the problem was that I didn't have this corner of the CPU fully soldered down. I thought I did even after multiple checks. Nope, just still wasn't good enough. So I had to go back in there. I ended up fixing it. That fixed the color issue and it fixed the game reading issue. I also didn't have sound, and that was because of the soundboard. I reused the original soundboard, but I'm like 99% sure that it's not that I can't just swap over the boards because I believe they're exactly the same. I think that headphone jack was just gone or the capacitors were gone or whatever, because I did grab that from a dead board, like I said in the video. So I did end up swapping it over off camera, and now it's on one of the red boards, the aftermarket boards. And I literally just took another board, not the same board, but a different one, swapped components over. I snipped off these little guys instead of just desoldering them, because when I tried desoldering them from a different board, it just fell apart. So I snipped them off and then soldered them down, and then everything's fine. It all now works magically. So that audio board that I just originally used just wasn't working, period. I don't like to use fully working boards. I like to use dead boards for these projects. So, I should expect some bumps in the road. I do recommend checking out my full review for this, because I did mention it earlier in this video, but I do have a little bit of a rant monologue about the buttons for this. I'll show off what I did for the buttons in a minute, but overall, I do really like this project. I just wish I would have gone without the clicky switches for the buttons. You may disagree with me, but I highly recommend you watch my rant about clicky switches, because this goes for like all of the clicky button mods across all the Game Boy mods. Anyways, I'm not going to get into it here. But now let's prove that this is working, and what exactly I'm going to fix in this part of the video. Boom. It's going to load into my Easy Flash. It's got a dry battery. It works. Here's the problem with it, though. I'm just going to set this down here very carefully, and then I'm going to press right here. That's a problem. And sometimes if I just like put a game in there, I can just set it down, and that's going to be enough pressure to just let it go on and load and do everything that it would normally do. I'm having issues with my Easy Flash right now, but this thing has been kind of broken for a while now. I don't even have a battery in it anymore. But yeah, this is a problem, and I'm going to try and fix it right now, as well as show you what I did to fix the buttons. Let's just tear this down real quick. Oh, wow. All of that super glue crap got all over in there. I don't even know what it is. It's just like it reacting or something, but we can go ahead and clean that up like we just did. But yeah, as you can see, this is all I did to swap out the board. If I remove these here, we can see on the back that I literally just snipped these components off of the other board, and then I soldered them down on top as though they were like SMD, instead of desoldering them like I did with the capacitors, just reflowing the solder, pulling it out, and then sticking it into the new board. That's what you're probably supposed to do with these, but they literally just fell apart from the inside when I tried to desolder them like the proper way. So your mileage may vary. You can also just get the new components for this. It's in the bill of materials on the GitHub. It's linked down below. But yeah, that was a little frustration of mine. Ultimately, I think if you have a good soundboard, you know that this board of the original Game Boy is still good, you're probably fine to reuse it without having to swap it over to a new board. I could be wrong, but all I did was literally swap over all of the components in the same exact spots that they were on the other boards. So I think this is just a replacement board. Anyways, the other thing, as far as the power switch, I think that these components here are just shorting to something over here, and that's what's causing the power to turn on with me just pressing down in this area, because there's a lot of components over here and it's probably just shorting to here, or there is a chance that these wires here are pinching together and making it turn on, but I'm gonna guess it's just this. So I'm just gonna put some Kapton tape over this area and we should be good to go. Okay, that's probably good enough. I don't need to bother covering up this stuff because there's not going to be anything to short to if it's over here. You can if you want to be extra careful, but it shouldn't be necessary. The last thing I want to do is unscrew this. I mean, I really don't want to unscrew it. I want to be done. This video is already over 30 minutes, but we can lift this up and you can see it's a little funky looking. I'm going to remove these real quick. and I'm going to clean this up because this is all of the crap from the super glue that I used. So without diving into my entire rant from the main review, the membranes on top of the clicky switches just doesn't work. It doesn't, I mean, it works. It doesn't feel good. It's annoying. I don't like it. You have the feel of a double press because of the membranes. You're pressing down the membranes and then you're clicking the switches. But anyways, I've done this before where I just cut off the membrane part, the black membrane part, the circles that protrude, and then I super glue them to the plastic part of the battery. And I do that with A and B as well. And start and select, they're all membrane, so I can't really do anything about that. I just leave that be. It works fine enough. But again, you're pressing this into the switch. So you're pressing this down, and it feels like it's depressed, and this is depressed. But then you have to press it even further to actually get the button to click. So it can feel like you're pressing the button, but you're not actually getting the switch to click. And so you don't actually get a button press on screen. Make sense? I hope so. So these are just super glued in, and this is what super glue does. It makes this weird white stuff come out, and you can clean it up with just some isopropyl alcohol, but it's just cosmetic. So it's really not that big of a deal. To me, it's a little bit of a deal because I have to make it look good on camera. So doing that a little bit. You do not have to do this, but if you get annoyed with the button presses like I do, then this is what you want to do. Okay? Sound good? I don't know how that piece of dust got in there. I did try some like 3D prints for this. There's like 3D printed plugs, but they're not good enough. It actually made the D-pad unusable. So yeah. And I didn't really feel like tinkering with this enough. At the end of the day, I still don't like this. I'd rather just swap out to membranes. But like I say in the full review, this is not made with ENIG. So the button presses are not going to be super accurate. And I'd rather have accurate button presses that just don't feel as good and maybe hurt my hands a little bit more than to have like 70% accuracy with button presses. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I'm going to button this back up and we'll test to make sure that the power switch isn't being shorted anymore. Cool. So it turns on, and no matter how hard I press, it's good. It's not shorting. Sweet. Okay. I also just want to reiterate the whole button thing that I did can be completely avoided if you just don't do clicky button switches on this mod. Just leave it off of the bill of materials. If you send this into PCBWay or whatever, if you do it on your own, just omit them and use ENIG for your boards, at least the button board. The rest of them probably not necessary. But for the front PCB, make it ENIG and don't include the clicky switches, and it'll be normal. But if you really want clicky buttons, I highly recommend doing it this way or something similar, because the double press effect is just so annoying and you won't understand it until you actually experience it. Okay? That's all I want to say. This is fully good to go now, so I'm fully good to go now.